Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that goes to the cinema, sees a couple of films, stays at home, watches a couple of things, rates them all out of 5, and then sees where has the money been better spent this week. My name is Tosin and I am the host. I am based up somewhere in the middle of the country in a place called Bromsgrove just outside Birmingham. And joining me as always on the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
And Shaun Harris.
Hello there.
Yes, well, thank you for joining. Let's just jump straight into it. How you guys are doing? Yeah, you're doing fine, all that kind of stuff. Pleasantries out of the way. Let's go to what we have on the table this week that we are bringing from the cinema to talk about.
Well, we went to the secret screening at our local cinema on the Isle of Wight, and we both saw one film together, which was called, is it Next Goal Wins?
Next Goal Wins.
Next Goal Wins.
Yeah.
That's
that.
Taika Waititi's new film, which has been brewing for a long time. They've been talking about this film for about 2 years, and I have a theory as to why it is now they've decided to release this film. But anyway, and Shaun, how about you? What else you seen?
Okay, at the cinema, I went to see Thanksgiving, which we saw from last week.
Yeah,
but
we
apart
told
from that,
them last week. Yeah.
Yeah, and apart from that, I've been watching quite a lot of stuff on YouTube and the football.
All right, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, so.
We're getting close to Christmas, and you know that we're getting close to Christmas because all of a sudden there's all these midweek games that just start popping up out of nowhere. That you're like, wait, hang on a second, didn't they just play last? What? All of a sudden, why do we have it? And then most people just go, well, we got midweek football. We're not going to argue, and just watch it. I'm always kind of like, hang on, wait, where did this come from? All right, cool. So that's a little bit of stuff. And I have seen Wish. So this is Disney's 100-year anniversary movie, Wish, in the cinemas. Saw that this afternoon. And then if we go over to Netflix and Friends and all that, I've had a very, very animation-heavy week. Sharon, you're going to love it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which is it essentially, if you hear the word Scott Pilgrim, as film buffs, you probably would remember Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is in that world. I'll say that, and I'll say the rest when I review it. And let's see, Sharon, what did you see at home?
Yeah, I finished off watching the first season, because I think there's 2. The first season of a series called Joe Pickett on Paramount Plus.
All right. Okay, cool. Joe Pickett. And Shaun, how about you?
Yeah, well, as I say, I've been watching quite a lot of YouTube. So apart from one or the other, but the thing that I watched a few of, there's this little channel called Armoured Carriers, and they've got this test pilot that went through the all through the war and post-war and flew probably the majority of planes that we know about. And what was really, really interesting, there was a few surprises in there, so quite good, really.
All right, good. So we have that. Shaun is taking us into a bold new world of finding random things on YouTube. We're testing it out this week, and we're going to see if we just find things that are made on YouTube and see what happens with that. All right, cool. So let's kick off. Let us kick off with Thanksgiving, because it's been waiting patiently for a week for us to talk about it. And Shaun, talk to us about Thanksgiving, because the headlines that I've seen from this is that it's Eli Roth, who is like a horror head, who's done things like he does the Hostel movies. He showed up in Inglourious Bastards. But we know this man likes blood. He likes gore. He likes killing young people in inventive ways. So tell us about this.
Okay, so this film, this was when Tarantino did the Grindhouse films, Planet Terror and Death Proof.
Yes.
In the middle, there was like coming attractions with these really grainy, cheesy movies like Werewolf Women of the SS and Hobo with a shotgun and things, and Machete. So there are all these little trailers. Anyway, there was this other trailer by Eli Roth called Thanksgiving, which is like a horror film. Welcome back to Thanksgiving, and there's some incident in it. So this is that film. It's the film's called Thanksgiving, based on the Grindhouse trailer.
So they made a trailer, and they eventually, years later, they go, let's actually make that a film.
Yeah, let's actually make that a film, because they did it with Machete, which Yes, so, but what I really liked about the Grindhouse features was they had all the crackly, and the lines down all the old films. That was proper cheesy feature. In fact, I'm surprised. I don't know if there's be a Simon Pegg one called Don't. There was a trailer on for Don't.
There was a trailer done by Edgar Wright called.
Oh, that was Edgar Wright. That's Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright did that one. Yeah. He did a trailer called
right.
Don't, which I don't think they're ever planning to make because
No, I wouldn't think so. I'm not sure they'd be able to.
I don't think I think that was designed to be a trailer. It wasn't designed to. Because in the trailer there's no storyline. There's nothing there. It's just a whole bunch of things with someone going, don't.
If you want to go into this house, don't. If you want to go into the cellar, don't. Anyway, we're back to this one. So it's based on one of those movies. So I went with John to see this. Our friend Happy John.
Happy John. He's becoming a regular feature on this.
He is, because he's a horror connoisseur. I'll have to have him up. I'll have to have him up one night. He likes all his horror flicks, as Sharon knows. Sharon knows Happy John. So this is Thanksgiving. Basically, it starts off. There's a Black Friday sale. So this is like a Black Friday sale, and there's loads and loads of people waiting outside, waiting to get into this Black Friday sale in this big supermarket. Well, there's a bunch of teenagers. There's always a bunch of teenagers in slasher pics, and that one of the teenagers' dad owns a store, so they let him in through one of the side doors, and the people in the crowd get really cheesed off with this, and there's only 2 security guards, so they sort of rush the store and they break into the store, and there's havoc and people get hurt and killed and injured and all sorts of stuff like that. And then it all flicks to 1 year later, so all that's out of the way, and they're talking about having another Black Friday sale in the supermarket, and it's like, so they're talking about, whatever you do, don't do it. And then there's a few sort of murders that happen, quite gruesome. They're killed in quite gruesome. There's lots of, as you can imagine, with Eli Roth and Hostel. And
is Eli Roth that if he doesn't do anything else, he does gruesome.
He does gruesome, yeah. So they decide that they're going to try and trap this killer. So they're going to hide some people in the parade, but it all goes wrong. In the Thanksgiving parade, but it all goes wrong. So yeah, excuse me. A lot of deaths, a lot of gore, a lot of blood. But what was really interesting was, I didn't realise. So I'm not going to give away the thing, but it took me a while. Normally, I'm quite good at figuring out who's doing the killings.
Yep. Who's who?
But sort of a little way through the film, I said, "Oh, I think it's this person," and John said, "No, it's that person," and John was right. So yeah, that's all I can say. And he explained to me why he was right. So obviously, it's like the Scream films. There's obviously a theme that I don't know about. Although I watch slasher pics, there's obviously a theme like Scream. So he that was quite interesting.
Who the final girl is going to be? All
that yeah. So I did get that one wrong this time, but it was just funny. I said, "Oh, I bet that character's." He goes, "No, it's that character." It was just funny how we spoke like that. Anyway,
I just have this image now of John looking at you and rolling his eyes and being like, "Oh, noob."
A newbie.
Not know the rules of these films.
That's it. There are rules, but yeah, there must be obviously. But I didn't see that one. So here we go. Anyway, so the film itself, that's basically the story. It's basically a slasher pick, like most slasher picks, with teenagers and people getting killed in rather gruesome ways. Yeah. And there is actually, one of the scenes, as it's Thanksgiving, is, let's just say there's a cooker involved in food and the table set up and things, and sort of people all set up on a Thanksgiving table with some of the food, which might be, not quite the food you're thinking of. But anyway,
okay, all right. So this is the thing. Obviously, it's as you said, it's Eli Roth and this film always just seemed to me like it was just going to be slasher movie. But the difference is that it's set at Thanksgiving. I think in the run up to it, I think Eli Roth even said something along the lines of, "Oh, that every holiday has its own horror movie, and Thanksgiving is the only one that hasn't had a Black Christmas or something like that.
Halloween,
has not his own thing." So he was like, "Oh, we with that." So in my head, I was thinking this is just going to be your usual horror movie slasher flick thing. Only difference is that it's Thanksgiving, and the guy who does the killing might be dressed like a pilgrim or something like that. Yeah. And so
that's pretty much toast. You've nailed it. You've nailed it.
So I was wondering, is there anything else in this film that is anything other than that?
Not really. No, nothing you say. And there's a few comedic moments. The thing what I liked about it was it knew what it was and it didn't take itself too seriously. Okay. And some of the deaths were quite interesting and well done. Although it's Yeah, so it was pretty standard fare, really. All these things happened, and then obviously you do find out who the killer is, but there's something that happens where you don't know if the killer's still about or whether. So it's like left. So it's not one of those like they can't. Or it must have been destroyed or incinerated or thing or something like that. So who knows? So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you who knows. Eli Roth knows.
Eli Roth knows.
I heard that already. They've already commissioned a Thanksgiving 2. So Thanksgiving 2 has so get ready. We're going to be getting one of these every year until people stop watching them or until they shoot a car into space.
That's it.
And then people stop watching.
I think what it is they're probably cheap to make, and they make quite a lot of money, because I should imagine they're sort of fairly cheapish budget wise.
Well, horror movies are known for that. Like, there's a lot of people a lot of sort of well-known movie makers who got their start in horror because somebody would give them the money to try something out in horror because it's cheap to make. So if you look at like Jordan Peele with like Get Out, or even if you look at Blumhouse, like, the guys who did The Conjuring, Annabelle, Megan, all those films, they are not expensive by modern day standards, but they figured out a way in which that if we do this and this and do this, we can make a lot more money than we spend on it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think fair play to them. I tend not to watch them, although I did watch Megan the other day. And it's... I think I would argue even if that's even a horror movie.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think that is.
Yeah. So anyway, so how many stars would you give Thanksgiving?
Well, this is surprising for me because normally I'm very discerning when it comes to your slasher picks, but this was quite reasonable. I didn't dislike it. I knew what to expect. I knew that. So it's a solid 3. Throw the 3-star for this one.
All right, cool, good stuff. And now we go over to Netflix and Friends. And the first offering from Netflix and Friends this week is Joe Pickett. From that, well, I think of it as a graveyard of a streaming service, which is Paramount Plus, because I have never seen anything on Paramount Plus. Each time, like I know, Sharon, you have Paramount Plus. You had it for a while, I think, with your Sky thing. And each time
we got it at free, and we decided to keep going with it because between us, there's enough on there for us to keep going. Well, actually, we'll watch this season, and then something else comes on. Oh, well, actually, we'll watch that. So yeah, we've actually kept going with it beyond the free file.
That's good, because each time you come up with something and you say, "Oh yeah, we saw this on Paramount Plus," I'm like, "What? Oh yeah, that exists. I totally forgot about that." So tell us about Joe Pickett.
Joe Pickett, it's based on a very amongst certain circles, a very well-known series of books. Joe Pickett is a star of these books written by a guy called C.J. Fox, and there's 25 of them, and they have been going for a long time. They have been 15, 20 years probably. These books have been written, and Joe Pickett, at the start of the books, I've only read the first 4 because I've only just discovered them quite recently myself. He is a game warden in Wyoming, in rural Wyoming. And this is like a one-horse town, basically, where he has got hundreds and hundreds of square miles of, like, the Bighorn Mountains where he patrols. And he lives at the edge of this small town and one day there's a series of events. And basically what it culminates in, one morning he goes out of his house and he finds someone dead on his woodpile. And this man has been shot with an arrow, and he was carrying a cooler box, what you would normally carry, like your packed lunch in. But it's empty. And in the bottom of this cooler box, there's some animal droppings. And that's it. And from there, he has to work out what on earth is going on. And there are these seemingly unconnected events. Like in the mountains, a group of hunters have been shot in their base camp, and they don't understand why. And so there's all these seemingly random things that come. And Joe Pickett, his job as a game warden in Wyoming is basically to make sure that people have their fishing licenses, their hunting licenses, and when they go fishing, they don't take more than like 3 or 6 fish out of the river. And if they're hunting for food, they don't take more than, what their license is like. So they can shoot a deer or an elk or whatever, and they can take it away and they can harvest it for meat, but they don't do trophy hunting. They literally hunt for food. Yeah. And so his job is not normally to investigate murders. His normally is about rural crime. And so suddenly he has become because it's like this guy has died on his doorstep, and he'd had a run-in with this guy. It's him. He basically ends up investigating and finding out what it is about what has gone on, to have this guy who he doesn't live in the middle of town. He lives at the edge of town. This guy came to him with an arrow through his chest, and then he died basically on his doorstep. So he wants to work out why this man came to him, what was in the carrier, and who shot him. And then you get various different red herrings and various different strands. So at the heart of it, it is like a whodunit.
Yeah.
But then it sort of takes you into a different setting. This is rural Wyoming, a part of the country. I've never been to America, so I don't know it. But it is one of those big square states right up at the top, at the top bit. And they're all the ones that are all the straight lines. They seem to be in straight lines. The straight.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just like, so you ignore mountains and rivers and natural phenomena. You just go, we'll go from there to there as our boundary. So an interesting state, but other than it being rural and it having like the Shoshone and the Cheyenne up there, that's all I know about Wyoming, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a complete, for me as a sort of someone from southern rural Britain, I know nothing about this world or this culture, and so it was an interesting sort of slice of life into something I probably would never ever encounter.
All right. Well, cool.
And an interesting whodunit.
So obviously you have the whodunit and then you have the setting and everything like that. So that's the setting. The whodunit element of it. What did you think about that? How did that get you?
I thought they did it very well. I mean, I had a slight advantage because I've only read the first 4, and this was based on a couple of the first books. So
you have actually read the books.
I've read 4 of them. I've only read the first 4, and the first series was based on the first 3 books. They take elements out of different stories. So even though I knew broadly what was happening, because they'd mixed and matched some of the books, I was thinking, well, actually, that character isn't in that story. So they had mixed it up a bit. So it was interesting and different enough for someone who'd read the books to go, well, actually, I don't really know what's going on here. And so, but no, I found it interesting. I liked it. And you're
carrying on with season 2.
Yes, I'm going to watch season 2, and I'm going to carry on reading probably a few more of the books. Because I think the thing about Joe Pickett, the fact that he's a game warden, is interesting. But the fact that in some ways he's like an everyman. He's not the biggest guy. He's not ex-military forces. He's not a special agent. He's not a secret, ninja. He is like a family man. He's happily married. He's got children. He has got, he hasn't got a particular set. He's good at what he does.
Yeah, he is not Jack Reacher, essentially.
He's not Jack Reacher. No, he's not like he's sort of like 5'9", 5'10". He's not the most muscular guy in the world. He is not very good at shooting. I mean, in the books, he's known for the fact that he can't hit anything, so they gave him a shotgun because it's the only thing he can hit anything with. Because they give him a small arm, and he just can't hit anything.
Okay.
So he's not like Deadeye. He's not a dead shot. So he's an ordinary guy, but he's suddenly thrust into these extraordinary circumstances.
Oh, I've just looked up the cast of Joe Wick. There's Joe Wickett, right? No, Joe Pickett. Sorry, that's
Pickett.
it. Yeah, and I recognize nobody. Okay, there's 2
no,
people
I don't.
I recognize David Alan Grier and Paul Sparks because he was in House of Cards. But apart from that, I'm like, I'm so intrigued now because I essentially Paramount Plus, I don't understand what their strategy is or what it is when you go to that streaming platform for. And I'm thinking because when you were talking about the number of books and everything like that, it sounds to me like it could be like when they heard Reacher was doing Amazon, they were like, "Ooh, we could do that too. Let's go find a series of books that are not as well known as that and cast people that don't." But anyway, let's see. So how many stars do you give it?
Yes, I enjoyed it. So I'd definitely give it a 3-star.
Sure.
But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I think it's accessible enough for people who don't have to have read the books. My brother's watched it and enjoyed it, and he's gone on and finished all of season 2 before I even got halfway through season 1. So he watched all of them. So he enjoyed it, and he doesn't read. He does read, but he doesn't read that sort of book. So yeah, and I thought it was accessible. It was enjoyable. Yeah, it's a good watch. So I give it certainly a solid 3.
Cool, a solid 3 for Joe Pickett. And now we go back to cinema, and we are going to talk, or I am going to talk about Wish. So, 100 years ago, I think 100 years, actually, this is the thing, it's Walt Disney Studios who started it. It might actually be 100 years ago that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was made.
Ooh.
It might actually be that,
was it? Yeah. it was 38, wasn't it? Snow White.
Was it? Okay, well, I think it's 100 years of Walt Disney Studios. Okay. It's 100 years of Walt Disney Studios.
Walt Disney Studios.
Boat Willie, was that the first one or something?
Steamboat Willie. Steamboat. Actually, I don't know. But anyway, 100 years. This year, Disney are doing a whole big 100-year thing, and this film they've designed to be the 100-year celebration of Disney. So it's set up. And it has a lot of the things that you expect from a Disney story. The thing kicks off, and when it kicks off, you have it has a storybook. And then the storybook flips open, and then you hear somebody's voice reading the story from that's written in the storybook and everything like that. And you hear about this guy who experienced tragedy in his life, and then he goes around the world and he learns a whole bunch of magic, so he becomes the most powerful sorcerer in the world, and he calls himself Magnifico. Goes somewhere, and he sets up this kingdom called Rosas. And when he sets up this kingdom called Rosas, a lot of people start coming to this kingdom. They come to this kingdom because they hear he's there, and they want to see what he owns, and they want to be part of what he built. So it starts from him just setting up this small thing to building a whole kingdom, quite frankly. And the way this kingdom works is that everybody, when they turn 18, they give their wish. And it's not just like any wish. It's not just like, oh, I would like, a cake for my birthday. It's like the wish, they call it their heart wish, that the driving force, the thing they want most in life. They give it to him for safekeeping. And so he takes this wish and he says, don't worry, I'll keep up this wish. And then every now and then he grants a wish of somebody in the kingdom. And the push of the story comes when you meet Asha, and she's a young woman who wants to be the king's apprentice, because the king he chooses an apprentice every year. So like you get a sorcerer choosing an apprentice. Does this sound familiar from Disney's back catalog?
Yeah.
I just figured that out right now. It did not occur to me while I was watching the film about someone trying to become a sorcerer's apprentice. It did not occur to me. But there's things like that, and it's the kind of film where I think that there's probably a lot of Easter eggs put in there that relates to it. Some of them are really obvious. Some of them are really like there's like somebody's wish is like wants to never grow old and fly. And there's somebody else whose wish is that they want a perfect nanny to look after their children, that kind of thing. So like there's all these sort of different things that they put in there to it. And Ashley tries to become the king's apprentice, or the sorcerer's apprentice, and she finds out that he takes these wishes from people, but most of them he never actually grants, and he has no intention of ever granting some of these wishes, including her grandfather, who has just turned 100. Her grandfather who's turned 100, and he's never had his wish granted, and she finds out that he's never going to get his wish granted, but his king has decided that wish is not going to be good for the rest of people, and he's the only one who gets to decide that. So it becomes this whole thing about she's thinking this isn't fair, and she goes up and then she wishes upon a star.
And you wish upon a star?
Yeah, she wishes upon a star.
There's a song about that.
Yeah, there's a song about that. Yeah, there's a whole thing about that. The Disney overture that you hear before every Disney film is when you wish upon a star. When you wish upon a star. So she wishes upon a star, and then magically this star comes down. It comes down and becomes like, her sidekick, and she realizes that, look, there is other magic in this kingdom beside the king. And so she decides it's time to change everything, and we have to release all these wishes, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the king is like, wait a second, there's another source of magic. Somebody's done some magic. I don't like this. You're messing this thing up. I need to control everything. I need to grab it. So it becomes this race between Asher trying to free all the wishes and the king trying to keep the status quo and keep everything exactly the way it is. And one of the things that when I go back home after watching the film, I was like, how's the film? I was like, I actually quite liked it. This film has received a lot of flack for, it's unoriginal or anything like that. And I think part of it is treading this line between being totally unoriginal because it's Disney and it's supposed to be celebrating everything you've had over the last 100 years of Disney. It's treading that line between we have to be unoriginal because we have to refer everything but also pushing it forward. I think it looks amazing. I love the art style in this because the backgrounds look like watercolors. The foregrounds look like there's this weird mix where it looks like it looks like it's hand drawn and then they gave it to ChatGPT, who made it a little bit 3D and made it a little bit CGI. And at the beginning, I just think it looks amazing. It looks great. It looks different from a lot of the other Disney things that you've got. And the storyline, I think it is because Disney recently has gone away from your traditional bad guy, bad, evil, cackling guy who's sort of like, no, I will take everything. They've gone away from that. But this one, I think they very obviously made him a cackling bad guy. Even though they've given him like a reason to be a cackling bad guy, they very much made him that. So and I and also, oh yeah, the thing I was gonna say, my wife asked me about it, and I was like, it's 90 minutes long. It's 90 minutes long, and in today's day and age, if there's a film that's 90 minutes, it could be the worst film in the world. It will still get an extra star from me because it's 90 minutes long. So there's all these different things that they do. There's bits where Asha but she's not a princess. She's just someone. She's just a normal person in this kingdom. And you have your usual sidekick. They come up with like a talking goat sidekick who's actually quite funny, called Valentino, and she has these 7 people who help her out. 7 people who help her out, and if you look at, and this is something that I'd heard about it beforehand.
Number.
Yeah, I know. There's 7 people and each one of them has like, a particular character trait. There's one of them that when you meet him, he's asleep. There's one of them when you first meet him in the kitchen, he starts sneezing. There's one of them that has glasses, wears red, and is the smart one. There's one of them who's always like, really happy and everything with everything. That kind of stuff. And I was the only person in the screening that I went to see. So I actually picked up a picture, and there's all these subtle hints where they are dressed, like the colors and the hints and everything like that are exactly the same as the 7 dwarfs. And I thought that was actually a very subtle one, because I know there's people who watched it and haven't realized that's what they're doing. And if somebody hadn't told me, I might not have realized it. But there's even things like some of the characters, the character design of some of people in this film. One of them who is called, I remember his name begins with a D, because the dwarf that he's based on begins with a D, and he is quite stupid. But he looks very much, the character design is exactly the same as a character called Fred in the Disney film Big Hero 6. It's down to the ears, everything like that. I was like, so you can see that they're doing a lot of things, and they're sort of celebrating the fact that they've done a lot of stuff in Disney. It is quite a good storyline. I think that I think it's a very good mix of traditional Disney and also going forward to say, well, we have to say something about the world that we live in now, because the whole thing about come stay here. People want to come stay in Rosas because it's a safe place. Magnifico has made it clean and everything like that, but it's like give me a bit of your soul and then you can live here in this utopia. And it just felt very sort of like social media to me. Like, when people say, oh, you get all this stuff on social media, but what do you give up for it? Like, how much of it do you give up? How much of a life have we given up for that? And it felt very much like that. There is and I like this film. I like this film a lot. I don't understand why it's getting a lot of the hate that it's getting. I know you're never going to watch it, Sharon, because it's animated, unless a young child drags you along. But I think there are enough things in it that make you think, oh yeah, I remember that about Disney. Yes, Disney has done some great stuff. As much as they are this big, massive capitalist organization that makes me despair sometimes because of the way they do things, there are still things that they have done that make you smile. And I liked this. I liked this a lot. I thought some of the songs were actually quite good. I thought Chris Pine, who voices Magnifico, pretty good. Pretty good singing voice. Asha is voiced by Ariana DeBose, who you would know from winning an Oscar for Steven Spielberg's Sharon.
West Side Story.
Yes. She is, and so obviously she can sing. So it's quite good. I mean, I have one problem I have with it is the typical thing, in musicals, the best kind of musicals, when you have a song, it moves somewhere. Somewhere and
tells a story.
And there is a song in this where people have said it's the best song in the film, and it is a good song. But my problem with it is when they finish singing the song, they are in exactly the same place that they were when they started singing the song, and nothing has moved on. The story hasn't moved anywhere. They're in exactly the same place. That song was pretty much inconsequential, and that annoyed me. But all in all, I would give Wish a 3 out of 5. I think it's good. I think Disney have done enough to deserve talking about themselves and making something to sort of like pat themselves on the back. And I think this is it, and I think that's what it does, and I think it does it well. So 3 out of 5 for me for Wish. Right, cool. And now we go over to Netflix and Friends, and this is the first YouTube. We're going to be YouTube. Shaun has found himself a nice channel on YouTube, and he found a documentary. How long is this documentary?
It's about 45 minutes. Well, there's a couple of the same on the same channel, so it's like him. But basically, it's the story is about this Eric Winkle Brown, and the first one I watched was about his his life story really. He was saying how he started off and he got like joined. So when he was young, when he was about 15, he went to Germany because his father was in an he went to Germany. So he went to post-war Germany, 1936, to see the Olympics and what have you. And they met a famous German, I think his name was, a proper German Luftwaffe pilot who said, "Come on, young man, I'm going to take you for a ride in the plane." He said, and he took him up and turned upside down and did all sorts of things. And he stayed behind. He stayed behind in Germany when the war broke out.
Oh wow.
And then he said that he didn't know what was going to happen to him. He had this car, so he would have been about 17 then. And they just come one day and said, "Look, we're at war with your country. We're going to have to take you." And they took him to Switzerland, and from Switzerland he got back to he was lucky to get out, but he went back to, and he joined the Auxiliary Air Force. And then an aircraft carrier got sunk, so they needed pilots, so he transferred to the Fleet Air Arm. And they made this escort carrier ship for the convoys, which was just a cargo ship, and they basically sliced it in half and and he said a lot of pilots couldn't actually land on this because it was such a small deck. So but he could. So he said, "I'd never landed on an aircraft carrier before, so I didn't know the difference." So, and then from there gradually increased, and he got better. And they said, "Oh, would you?" And he gradually moved up and flew all these aircraft, and he just so all through the war basically he worked himself up. He became worked himself up, and he went to different countries. So he went to America. He flew practically every plane. He said he was really, really lucky because obviously he was over here. And the people. So basically he flew practically every plane, and he had to teach American pilots how to land aircraft carriers. It's his whole life story. So I won't say much more than that. Yeah. And then after the war, post-war, he went to see. They said he could have an hour's interview with Goering, and he had an interview with Goering, and explains all this. And I mean, what a life this dude has had. He went to America, he flew, and post-war, he basically was one of the few. They said so in the Soviet sector in Berlin, they said, because obviously the Russians didn't want him to, it wasn't quite the Cold War, it was still, so he managed to get into Russia, and he flew a lot of like the Sturmoviches and there's comments he makes on the Russian planes compared to the Allied planes is what you would think anyway, like he was saying you could run your hand along like a Spitfire and you wouldn't feel anything. You run your hand along a Sturmovich and you'd sort of feel every rivet and every bump and wonder what was going to. But so anyway, so that was the first one. That was the story of his life, and then I watched two others. So there was one about the post.
So are they all about Eric Winkle Brown?
Yeah, basically he's narrating the stories. He's telling the stories.
So it's almost like a 3-part documentary about Eric Winkle.
No. It's just like I mean, some of it repeats itself. So I guess it's just that he must have spoken. I haven't done too much investigation
research
into it just yet because I don't really know. But it's basically him talking, and then they show old pictures of the planes. And then there was this other one which he rates his best and worst aircraft, which I really, really like. And this is the one. Sharon, what was the most famous German single engine fighter in World War II?
Heinkel?
Not a Heinkel, no. It was a Messerschmitt Bf 109.
The Messerschmitt, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know, and this is for the first time, you're talking to two World War II, or you're listening to two World War II buffs now, going over their stuff. All right, Carl, carry on.
So yeah, what I do rather than bore people with that type of stuff is what we do is just say that if you're interested in aircraft, or if you're interested in that period of history, or if you're interested in war stories from people that are really, really interesting and have got something to say, then you're going to love this, because I mean it was just one of those random things. I was on YouTube and I just thought, oh, that looks quite interesting, about aircraft carriers, landing short deck aircraft carriers, and I watched it, and like when something hooks you, because normally if you're watching YouTube you can sort of dip in, and I mean what I do normally with YouTube is I might be doing something else but just have YouTube on. But that actually, excuse me.
It actually gripped you. It actually gripped you and made you sort of like pay attention.
Yeah, actually, it grabbed me, and go on.
So no, just ask, what's the name of the channel again?
Okay, it's Armoured Carriers.
Armoured Carriers.
Yeah.
And do they just do what's up World War II like vehicles and stuff?
Yeah, vehicles, tanks. I mean, the thing is, there's such a plethora of stuff on. I mean, some of the channels I watch now is Mark Fountain Productions. If you're interested in a particular, I guess it must be my ADHD, is that I'll be something and I'll really focus on it for maybe 2 weeks or something like that, and I think, oh yeah, boom, 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 aircraft, Waterloo, Napoleon, maybe other stuff, maybe some, movie stuff, Eddie Howe, Newcastle, you know what I mean? So this particular thing, I was quite intrigued with this. So this sort of grabbed me. But you can, I mean, this is our first YouTube review, I know, and I guess if people want to, they can go on YouTube and find information and
There's
stuff
a huge
about
amount
anything
of
they want to
content on there, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's huge. If you wanted to find out about the War of Jacob's Ear, there's like
including us on YouTube. If you wanted to,
we are on.
We're on YouTube too. Of course.
You wanted to listen to a couple of people talk about films that they've seen recently and whether Netflix or cinema is winning. You can find that on there as well. But no, what you said, that is actually quite an intriguing story about someone who managed to go through that, because I'll tell you the thing I always find about us growing up in Nigeria, when you heard about World War II and anything like that, in your head, that's just what Germany always was. So Germany was always this nation that was at war with the rest of the world. And that was the story that you heard. Germany equals evil. That's all you heard. And it's not until you grow older that you think, hang on, but there must have been a Germany before the war. There must have been relationships with people before the war. There must have been people in Germany who lived in other places, and so when you hear a story like this about somebody who was actually in Germany when the war broke out and how that went, then I like hearing those sort of things, and the fact that he traversed all that. It sounds like an absolutely intriguing life. Yeah. So how many stars would you give Eric Winkle Brown's?
Well, I'd probably, to stories these particularly, if you're not interested in it, then perhaps you wouldn't. But for someone who's really interested in this, I would say this is a 4-star, and I'm pretty sure Sharon would like this sort of thing. I know she's more naval than aircraft, but I'm quite sure she'd like.
I cover all aspects of.
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to give this one a 4-star, and I think there's so much stuff on YouTube that if that you can sort of dip and delve, and I mean, so
yep.
and I guess it's a free platform if you want to accept the ads, or you can. So,
we're back to Magnifico now. You can have this for free, but what part of your soul would you give up?
Would you have?
What part of your soul would you give up if you want to have this stuff for free?
Yeah, we've got to watch Grammarly adverts.
They fall into the vortex of YouTube.
Grammarly, you need Grammarly.
Oh yeah. The Grammarly adverts are annoying, but I actually wonder what. Actually, I'll tell you what. If you're watching this or listening to this, tell us what adverts you see when you watch our stuff, because I'm actually intrigued to know what happens. What adverts does YouTube smack onto, a Netflix versus cinema stuff? So find us on YouTube, Netflix via cinema, or on Twitter, Netflix via cinema. All right, and now we're going to go back to cinema, and we are going to talk Next Goal Wins. Sharon, you want to take this one away?
Yes, this is a film by Taika Waititi. I think that's how you say it.
Taika Waititi.
Sorry, I got it wrong. It's basically about the worst football team in the world, which is American Samoa.
Yeah.
And they were apparently, I don't know much about international football, but apparently there is a notorious game where they were defeated by something like 32 goals to nil. And their dream as a national team is to score a goal. It doesn't matter if they win a match; they just want to score a goal. And they are basically at the bottom of every league known to man. They are at every national side, and their national side is made up of players basically who sort of are fishermen, who work in the shop, they're just like ordinary guys from they're just like, you play football. You'll do. You can be on the national team. That's the feeling you get. We don't know if it is quite that amateur, but that's the feeling you get, that they are just like a group of plucky amateurs who are just no good. And so they are desperate to have anyone who can help them to sort of get them from this unenviable position of being the worst team in the world. And so into this sort of perfect storm of, hideousness in their national game. This man who is a former professional footballer who has got rage issues, bit of an alcoholic, played by Michael Fassbender, who's called Thomas Rongan. He is suddenly thrust upon them. He's part of the American Football League, and he is told, because American Samoa is is American sort of
territory.
Yeah, territory.
And so he has been sent by the American League, go there, coach them for a while, and because basically it's that or nothing. You're either out on your ear or you do this. So he goes along there and tries to sort of whip this team into shape. And while he's doing this, it's not just about football. He learns a lot about life, as it were. So it's that sort of film.
Who'd have thunk it?
So it's he not only discovers the joy of living in this rural community, he discovers about himself as well.
And
so
found that the real magic was inside all along.
Yeah, so it's one of those. And so there is, as all these films, V for Victory and Escape to Victory, and The Mean Machine, the British version, and all these other sort of football, soccer for non-British, non-whatever people.
Yep.
You have a big match at the end. So we do witness their big match, which is them against Tonga, who are their arch rivals in sort of this sort of Pacific Islands. And if you can get an arch rival amongst Pacific Islanders, they are it. And so you have this sort of, ultimate contest of between the plucky underdog and the sort of their cocky neighbours.
Yeah. Oh, so that's it. So sports movies.
I'm out.
Sports movies. Okay, yeah. So I know it's actually based on a documentary of the same name that I have been trying to track down for years. And as I said, I've been waiting for this film for quite a few years because I've heard about it. Taika Waititi, I think he actually filmed this film before he made the last Thor film, but it just hasn't been released. And I reckon that the reason it's being released now is because recently Michael Fassbender came back to acting with The Killer. David Fincher's The Killer, and that came out and made a bit of a splash. I think they're like, oh, okay, cool, quick! Why people remember who Michael Fassbender is? Release this in the cinema. Put this out there. Let people know about this. So yeah, so Shaun, what did you think of this?
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't think. I mean, American sports films do quite well, cinematic wise. Although, again, speaking to John, because I spoke to John, to Happy John, he says that they don't do quite so well. American sports movies don't do quite so well in this country as they would in the USA, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyway, so football movies or soccer movies, whatever you want to call them, I don't think translate well to the movies. I don't think. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. Fassbender. He looked like he was in the I don't know, Fassbender's got one.
You're just going to add Fassbender to the pile, to the growing pile of award-winning actors you think are a pile of fill in the blank.
Overrated, yeah.
You write his name on the list and then you put your line through it. It's like, on my list and I'm crossing you out.
It's Fassbender. You get in there with Stanley Tucci.
You get in there with Stanley Tucci, yeah.
Get in there with Stanley Tucci. Who else it is? There's one other person who you just have an absolute... Jason Clarke.
Jason Clarke, yeah. Mind you, a couple of people I know have problems with Jason Clarke. I've been watching, just out of interest, and I know hopefully when it finishes, I've been watching Monarch. And
Monarch, yeah, Legacy of Monsters, yeah.
And I thought it was... who was the actor we just said?
Jason Clarke.
Jason Clarke. I thought it was Jason Clarke, but it's actually Kurt Russell's son.
It's Kurt Russell's son, yeah. Wyatt Russell.
Yeah.
But anyway, we talk about that when it's finished.
Any goal wins.
It's the next goal wins. I'll just Shaun, you know what I'm going to do? One of these days, I'm going to get nice and powerful, and I'm going to remake The Magnificent Seven. But I'm going to cast Fassbender, Tucci, Jason Clarke. Yeah. I'm going to be like, quick, give me somebody else. Give me someone else. Yes.
I think of some others. So yeah.
All right, cool.
But yeah, so on the whole, I mean, it had a few moments that I chuckled. I chuckled at a few moments, but I'm starting to what's his name? Taika Waititi. What's his name again?
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi. I'm starting to find his humor a little bit. It was good to start with Thor, but Jojo Rabbit. But I think it's starting to get on my nerves a little bit because it's sort of the same. It's the same.
He did a cameo, didn't he? And some of his cameos again are quite effective.
Yeah.
And this one, I wasn't getting quite convinced by his cameo.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I know what you guys are saying. I know what you guys are saying about Taika Waititi. That it's kind of like it felt fresh at the beginning, like him. I think him and his ideas and his worldview and everything, and his approach. It felt fresh at the beginning, but it feels like it very quickly became a shtick.
Yeah.
It became very quickly became a shtick, and now it feels like that's all he does.
Yeah. That's pretty much. Yeah,
it feels like that's all he does, and there is just something about it that, after a while, and I don't know this for a fact, but after a while, it just starts seeming lazy. It starts seeming lazy, and it starts feeling like you're not actually trying, or you're just doing what you did before, and I've seen this before, and it's actually wearing quite thin, and the fact, but he's done some amazing stuff. That's the thing. And I actually feel like he's somebody who could. Well, I personally, let me not talk for him. Let me just talk about myself. I could do with a break. I could do with a break of a couple of years that hopefully makes me appreciate him a little bit more, and then I come back and I see that. And so there's a bit of me that thought, like, for instance, when you're talking about this next goal wins, one of the reasons I want to see it is because I felt like this could be the smaller type of film that I feel could be a perfect marriage for his approach. Like, this kind of film could be a perfect marriage for his approach, and I really, really hope it is. But from what you guys are telling me, it tells me that I'm hoping in vain.
Well, you may like it, you may enjoy it, but yeah.
One of the other people who were there was at the secret screening, who I know she goes to all of them with her family. Apart from, and then if they don't like it, they leave. They stayed to watch this one, and on her review of it afterwards, she liked it. I was a little bit more. It was entertaining, but for me it was quite forgettable. It was one of those films that, because I know we were sat there thinking about what was the last secret screening we went to, and it was only literally as we left we went, it was about something or other. It took ages to work out what the film was we'd seen.
It did.
And I think this is going to be one of those films. You asked me in a couple of months, what was that film you saw? And I had to look up the name of the film today, and I saw it like 4 days ago. So I know that in a couple of weeks I will not remember this film. And so I think it's fine. There was one use of sort of bad language that I thought was probably unnecessary. But I just thought, on the whole, it was quite an inoffensive, It's quite a pleasant way to spend an hour and a half. It wasn't a long film, but it just didn't grab me. There was no spark about it. And I know that he likes these odd pairings, doesn't he? Taika, where he has sort of like, there's like Thor and Kurg. They have these odd couples. And there's a couple of those like where Michael Fassbender, he has like this little lad who sort of, it's like his sort of runner who he sort of has this sort of, who becomes like best pals with. And there's another character who becomes sort of very pally with, who is I suppose, to use the modern parlance, is like a transgender character. So he sort of becomes quite pally. So you have these odd pairings, and to me they just didn't have that chemistry. I think they didn't have that. They weren't instantly as charming as I think he thinks they are. And so to me, it just didn't quite have that spark. It was okay, but to elevate it beyond okay, it just didn't have that little spark of joy or that charm, or it was just something to me. It just wasn't.
I think that's it. Charm is the word, because at his best, his approach is just charming. Is incredibly charming. I still think Hunt for the Wilder People. That is a film that I will defend and I will fight anybody about.
And again, you had that odd couple, didn't you? Where it's just
Hunt for the Wilder People is a beautiful film. It's a beautiful film, but it's all right. Okay, cool. But I still want to see the documentary that it's based on, because I think the documentary says that this is just like it's everybody who's I heard about says that you fall in love with this group of people who have such a in the grand scheme of things, such a low stake aim that still means everything to them, means a lot to them, and apparently it's just a really, really quite heartwarming. So okay, so how many stars would we give Next Goal Wins, the Taika Waititi version?
For me, probably 3 stars. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Nothing.
Yeah, it's
nothing.
almost like 3 is one of those. It becomes a huge category, doesn't it? Because I don't think it's as good as my last review, Joe Pickett. It's not as good as that. But yet, I'd still feel like saying that it's a 3, though they're not on the same par. One is like a good 3, and one of them is like it's a 3.
Yeah,
so I think
that's how I feel. So unless
it's a flat 3.
It's a flat 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a 3.5.
I have to admit, I do feel like 3 is the widest rating that we can get because I'm about to give a 3 to something to something that I liked. For instance, I think was it this or was it? I remember thinking that okay, I'm about to give a 3 to something that I gave Wish a 3. This is on the other end of the 3 spectrum.
Yeah.
This is on the
like us with this, I guess.
Yeah,
I think we've done this before about how we rate things, isn't it? I think we should be bolder about giving things a 2 that are just okay, and giving things a 4 that we enjoy. I tend to say 4 and 5 for excellence, whereas I think if it's just entertaining, we should just go for a 4. So part of me is thinking I need to revise how I always assess what I would grade things at.
To be honest with you,
Otherwise, everything's a 3.
This is something that I personally have. I really was going towards a 2. I was going towards a 2, but in the end, the thing that stopped me giving this a 2, and what I'm going to talk about is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Oh yeah.
What stops me from giving it a 2 is I have to admit that it is well made. It is well made, but and I think part of what made me want to give it a 2 is because everybody raves about it. And when everybody raves about something and I don't get it, and it really, really annoys me because I feel like I don't see what people are talking about, and it feels to me like people are just jumping on a bandwagon and just saying, we must make this thing great. Oh, we must tell everybody it's great. And I'm like, no, it isn't. It isn't universally great. But and I know this will get you, especially because I saw the trailer for Furiosa this week. So I saw it. But Sean, this is the thing. I felt this way about the last Mad Max movie, which I know you love.
Yeah, I love. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel exactly this way. I was like, everybody is hyping this thing, and it's not supposed to be hyped. It's not that great. So I'm like sitting here going, okay, fine, and that's why I'm giving it a 3. So I'll come out for it. So this is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. You guys might remember Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I didn't mind that. That was Edgar Wright, wasn't it?
That was Edgar Wright. Yeah, it was Edgar Wright. It was based on a series of graphic novels called by a guy called Brian O'Malley, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World was a film that got hyped to the hilt. That I've tried going back and watching it, and I still don't think it holds together that well. There's something about it. There's something about the slacker pace of it, or anything like that. It has everything in it that I should love. It's very, very video game done. It's kind of like fighting all these bosses, all this. It has a brilliant cast who are all being funny and everything like that. But there's something about Scott Pilgrim versus the World that I just can't get with, and I just don't like, and I just think it's overhyped. So this is an animated TV show in which Edgar Wright gets back, and the entire cast, and I'm not joking, if there's a character in the film of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, that character is voiced by the exact same person in the TV show. Bearing in mind that the entire cast of Scott Pilgrim versus the World have become incredibly famous. You have Aubrey Plaza, Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, what's her name? No, Brie Larson, who I actually forgot was in Scott Pilgrim film. Brie Larson comes back to voice a tiny character in this. Brandon Routh, Chris Evans, Jason Schwartzman, all of them come back, and that's one of them. And the way this starts off, it starts off in pretty much exactly the same way as the film. So you have Scott Pilgrim, he's a slacker who's going out with somebody called Knives Chow, who we're not really entirely sure well, where everybody's like, well, you're going out with a 17-year-old, you're 25, you're going out with a 17-year-old. And he's like, well, no, we're not really going out because she thinks they're going out. He doesn't. And then he meets this girl, Ramona Flowers, who's kind of like the girl of his dreams, almost literally. And it's about when he starts finding something that she has like 7 evil exes. So much so, it follows the format of the film. And you're thinking, am I just watching an animated remake of the film? Then something changes, and then the entire series is kind of like a what if. It's like, oh, what if we change this one thing? How do things change? And so you have like 8 episodes, which is going off in a different way. There's still elements of the film in it. There's still 7 evil exes and all that kind of stuff, but it's going off in a different way than it did in the film. A lot of characters who got given short shrift in the film, who you like, show up for one scene and disappear, they get more to do here. But and quite frankly, it's almost as if they've taken Scott Pilgrim and they've switched it so that it's actually more about Ramona Flowers. It's more about Ramona because my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, was watching it with me, and after a while she was like, "Daddy, I want to watch Ramona Flowers." Instead of saying I want to watch Scott Pilgrim, she was like, "I want to watch Ramona Flowers," which kind of tells you where the focus is or where the emphasis is. So it's almost kind of like a different take on the same thing in the film. But once again, I was watching this just going, I'm not sure I'm the target audience for Scott Pilgrim, but everything says I should be the target audience for Scott Pilgrim. But I'm watching this thing and I'm getting annoyed because they're not really moving the story along that quickly. There's huge swathes where, as far as I'm concerned, nothing really seems to happen. They change this thing and move this person over there, and that person takes over there, and you're like, what was the point of that? And I found myself getting quite annoyed, quite frankly. I found myself getting quite annoyed, especially because this has been hyped to the heavens. I know it's going to be hyped to the heavens. I know that if anybody even watches me talking about this, they're probably going to go, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Scott Pilgrim's awesome. And I'm like, it probably is for you, but for me, I don't quite get it. I got annoyed by it. By the time it ended, I was happy that it ended. And I was going to be like, my visceral reaction, even though I think me taking away one of these stars is just a reaction to everybody hyping it and telling me I'm supposed to love it and me not loving it. I think that's part of what's going on here. So that's why I have to come back and I have to be, okay, take some time, look at it. It is well made. The fight scenes are good, even though I think that those were overhyped as well. Like there was bits where one of the makers was talking about, oh, there's a fight scene in episode 2 that if we did that in live action, it would be way too expensive. And they were talking about this fight, and I watched this thing and I was like, huh? I was like, that wasn't that great. That wasn't that great. I mean, I reviewed My Dad, The Bounty Hunter Season 2 last week. There's much better fight scenes in that, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so I would give it a 3. I would give Scott Pilgrim Takes Off a 3. If you liked the film, then I would say watch it. If you like the film, watch it because there'll be something in there for you. It was interesting seeing the way they've played with the story and how you can take the same basic elements and make a totally different story. I think that's actually quite good from an intellectual point of view. But sitting down there, I was not really enjoying it, watching it at all. And I was just kind of like, I need to finish this thing, mainly because I can talk about it. If I finish it, then I can talk about it and I can tell everybody why I don't like it. But if I don't finish watching it, I can't. So yeah, 3 stars for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Ooh.
But Shaun, it would be interesting to see. You said you didn't quite mind the film. It would be interesting to see if you watched this, what you thought about it.
Right, yeah. I'll have to try. There's so much. I'm sort of watching Doctor Who, I'm watching Monarch, I'm watching football.
There is way too much. Yeah. I think I have about 3 things on the go right now as we're talking about it, and it's and like as I spoke about when I was talking about Titane last week, and I was just kind of like, can't be bothered. No. If you're not going to tell me what's happening, I cannot be bothered. Okay, I've got to ask you a question, Sharon, about something we spoke about last week. But first of all, who do you think has won this week? Netflix or cinema?
I think it's Netflix. I think it's the streaming platform.
Okay.
I think it might be a tie.
Ooh, I would love to say that you're both right because it's so close to you being both right. But unfortunately, Shaun has got it. And yes, Shaun has got it. And Eric Winkle Brown has come to the has come to the save.
Eric Winkle Brown, yeah.
Yeah, he is he's
You're
done it
supposed to
again.
give it 4 stars. Yes, of course.
He's done it again. Eric Winkle Brown. He was like a war hero. He's come again, and he's come to the rescue of Netflix and friends to pull them out. It was going to be a dead tie, but Eric Winkle Brown brought everything up there. So yeah, that is it. So this week we have Netflix winning. But before we go, Sharon, I have to ask you: have you watched The Bodies yet?
No, not yet.
Okay,
No.
cool. Because I've
been finishing off Joe Pickett, so I haven't watched anything else other than that.
Okay, so because I was listening to last week's episode, I remember reviewing Bodies and saying that it was like right up your street and you had to leave so that I didn't inadvertently spoil anything for you or anything like that. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think about Bodies when you finally do watch it.
Yeah, I have to put that onto my to-be watch list.
Yeah, Sharon, I'm going to go and see Godzilla -1 on Monday. So if you want to come, that's an unlimited screening.
I'll have to see what
7:30, I think. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go because
this time of year.
because I'm off to Thailand again for Christmas. So.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
So I decided to. So
Godzilla -1. That's one of these weird things where it's one of those weird instances where Godzilla, this Godzilla might actually be seen as an art movie because it's a Japanese production.
The thing is, there was a brilliant thing called Shin Godzilla.
I've heard of Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla, which was basically this thing comes, destroys a city like a Titan thing, and it was just about the mobilizing the defense forces, like the government meetings, the local government meetings, the health department, the public department, the public for works, the army, and all that. And
I've heard that one's quite satirical.
Yeah, it's all, what are we going to do? Because the thing basically in Shin Godzilla, the thing actually pupates. So like this thing comes through, destroys a city, and then becomes a big lava. And it's like, what we're going to do? What we're going to do? What happens when the lava matures or whatever? Yeah. So Shin Godzilla's worth it. But this Godzilla -1, I think looks rather good. So I'm looking forward to it.
I like the idea behind it. I think the idea behind Godzilla -1 sounds quite intriguing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah,
but
like
I saw
taking it back to the 40s or the 50s. Yeah.
There's another Godzilla vs Kong.
Yes, Godzilla
coming out.
Kong,
I saw the trailer and I don't know. I didn't like that little Godzilla, little Kong. I don't know if I'm going to like that. I don't know if the trailer didn't do it for me. I was hoping it would, but. Because I quite like this universe, but anyway, we'll see what happens. So yeah.
All right, we'll see what happens with that. So anyway, in the meantime, do feel free to get in touch with us on Twitter, on YouTube, and let us know what you thought about what it is we said. It is Tosin talking a load of nonsense, and it's Scott Pilgrim, the best thing ever. Let me know. Come at me. Quite frankly, you might teach me something. But until that time, until next week, when Shaun will go off see Godzilla -1, and whatever else shows up in the cinemas. Oh, Wonka. Yeah. I think Wonka's showing up.
Oh, yeah, Wonka's on, isn't it? Okay. That'd be one to take Kemi, wouldn't it? Would you take Kemi for that? Or
Shaun, I had a very, very sad moment this week. I wanted to go see Wish with her, and she said, "Dad, I don't want to go to the cinema." And my heart fell. Oh. Yes. My heart fell. I think I might just sort of tell her we're going to get ice cream and then take it to the cinema anyway. It's like, you'll like it once you get there.
Aww. Oh.
No, child of mine, it's not like it.
The sweeties, the ice cream.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what bribe I can give to get her to go to the cinema. So hopefully, maybe Wonka might do it. But until next week, when we shall see a variety of different things, come back and tell you whether Netflix has won or cinema has won. It's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.